Hello, everyone. You are here for What Are Your Fears of Leaving That Toxic Job and How Can We Help You? So, we're going to talk about what the fears are. We've talked before about there are a lot of fears that many of us have about leaving a toxic job. Most of the time, it deals with finances. So, we're going to talk about what are those fears. So, I want to have your voice here. Okay. So, this is an impromptu live. So we're just going to ask Dr. Roche's here with me. I'm going to have her introduce herself in a moment, but we're just going to we're going to see what's in the chat in terms of what are your fears. So we're going to talk about what the fears are because we know we need to confront them. Okay. So if you don't already know me, I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, also a toxic job survivor. And my focus is on helping as many Black women as I can to leave and heal from toxic jobs. So Dr. Roche, if you can introduce yourself, and then we're going to just have this interactive, like a large sister circle tonight. Okay. So Dr.
Yeah.
Roche.
Well, good evening, everybody. I am Dr. Roche Brown, also known as the Doctor of Rethinking, because I help people to remix their thinking so they can make money, manage money, and of course, multiply their money. So I'm always excited that people are interested in making it, managing it, and multiplying it.
Absolutely.
I am a financial psychologist. So I help people around their money mindset to get ready to get their money together, right? So that's what I help people with.
Yes, yes, yes. And for everyone who has not already heard me say that I work with Dr. Roche to help me get out of the tax job that I was in. So before I resigned, I was working with Dr. Roche to help me get my money together. And I also worked with business coaches, right? So you saw the interview that I had this week with Dr. TK and Dr. Roche. So they were my first business coaches. So to help me get out, I knew I needed to get some help. Okay. So you might be in a similar position. So Dr. Roche and I are going to have a masterclass coming up next week, November 8th and 9th. So the masterclass is Get Your Money Right so you can leave that toxic job. This is a financial masterclass for Black women, okay? It's going to be on Zoom webinar, so that, nobody will be seen. So you won't be able to say you saw somebody at the masterclass and nobody can see you either, okay?
Right.
So in terms of security purposes, and your name is not going to be listed anywhere. Okay. So just wanted to say that because sometimes as Black women, we know these jobs are like plantations and we become very fearful of people knowing or trying to find out that we're trying to leave. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just going to have an open forum about what are your fears. So I'm going to put the masterclass information on the screen, but I see already that Marissa has noted that one of her fears I still have is that I won't be able to make the money I made in my previous job. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yes. And so sometimes that can keep us from leaving because
Yeah.
we're fearful about replacing income. And
Yes.
then we think, okay, well, at least I'm out of a toxic environment. But then there's a level of fear that comes in, like, okay, so am I going to be able to sustain making
Yeah.
money, right? So, Roche, what are your thoughts about this? And what have you heard from Black women about this type of fear?
Definitely. I think, the hugest fear is like our current lifestyle, right? So we have a certain type of way that we dress and we travel and we, take care of our families. And I think, when we look at that lifestyle, we're afraid that we're going to lose that lifestyle.
Yeah.
When it comes down to losing our job, and so we've talked about this before about like the golden handcuffs,
Yes.
that job has you held hostage, right? Financially, because you think that there's nothing better out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we, because of what we do and what we've seen, we know that that's not truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fear is lies that we tell ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
that's just one of those lies, one of those myths that we keep up for ourselves. We continue to lie to ourselves and tell ourselves that we'll never find anything better, right? It's like being in a toxic relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right? This relationship is horrible, and your
Mm-hmm.
brain will sit there and say, I'll never find anybody better. But we all know and we have evidence that that's not true.
Yeah.
That's not true. And so sometimes we just have to get our minds, into a place of saying, okay, what exactly is the amount of money? I know when we were working together was, what is the amount that you need
Yeah.
in order to keep up the current lifestyle you have?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
it may be exactly what you had at your previous job. It may be a little bit less.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if, as long as we take the time to look at the numbers. And
Yeah.
scary part. That's where
Yeah,
anxiety comes in.
absolutely. And I think a lot of the fear for many of us, and I know for myself, the fear was related to me not knowing. So I was too
Hmm.
scared to even look at my money
Yeah.
because I didn't know what that meant, what I was going to do. So that was anxiety provoking, right?
Yeah.
And when we think about this sense that money's going to run out, right? So, you know, we're used to, I think a lot of us, because this was me too. I love the
Hmm.
security of knowing the fifth of every month I was getting a paycheck. I love that,
It's the
right? I don't have to
predictability.
worry about money, right?
Yeah.
So now, I mean, that's one of the trade-offs when you think about, when you leave a toxic job, if you don't decide to go into another job, right? So if you decide to work for yourself, that's always a consideration of, okay, am I going to be able to sustain this? What's happening? And so
Yeah.
that's what we're going to talk about the masterclass about ways to replace your income, but also the importance of having multiple streams of income. So I
Yes.
know that a lot of people talk, even if you have a job, to not rely only on that job to make money, because what happens if they lay you off? What happens if you need to go? Okay. So again, I understand the fears, and we're not discounting the fears at all. And we start having those fears about what happens if the money's going to run out. The hope is that you have multiple streams of income. So if
Yes.
some start to kind of die down, you have other streams of income that are a little bit more stable, right?
Exactly.
Yes, yes, yes. And then I also see letting go of the old identity and now dealing with health issues, which are impacting the search. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So when we think about, being in a toxic job and the harm that we can experience at that job, that can impede our ability to find something else or to create
Yeah.
something else for ourselves. And so my hope is two things. One is that as Black women, that we slow down and pay attention to the signs before we
Hmm.
start getting really sick.
Yeah.
And let's say that we haven't. So that was me. Okay. I was not paying attention to the signs and I got
Hmm.
really sick. So if that's happening to you, my hope is that you are able to take a leave of absence to get some rest and
Hmm.
that you are able to seek medical treatment. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that you're healthy, right? And we understand also that finances can be very stressful. Can you talk a little bit
Mhm.
about that, Roche, about the stress of the finances and how that can impact our health as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. So when we're like in like a financial like debt or anything that will cause some stress and that'll lead to more depression and it'll lead to a lot of levels of being anxious, right?
Yeah.
And so what, I would say even I like the idea of what she just said about identity, right? Thinking
Hmm.
about your identity because I
Yeah.
think it may be a time to start to reframe and restructure what is your new identity going to be, you
Hmm.
know? And I think that's part of the work that we have to do is start saying like, what is going to be this new identity if I was to leave this job?
Hmm.
Even if I'm going to stay at this job, we want to think about that too. Like what is that identity that's going to, need to be there in order to make that happen?
Yeah.
And I think also like, financial stress often with people, anytime we have any level of stress, we recognize that it's going to lead to potential like physical ailments, like ulcers, panic
Hmm.
attacks
Hmm.
that can happen, right?
Hmm.
Sleepless nights that can also occur because you're up all night worried about, the finances. And
Yeah.
when we're in that kind of state, oftentimes we're not able to even attract, when we're talking about streams of income, we
Hmm.
can't attract streams of income when we're in that state,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
that's why I'm like we changing that identity and changing that narrative that we're telling ourselves
Hmm.
so we can begin to be in a position to say, money comes to me easily and effortlessly,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
If you believe in God or have any like higher power, that you
Hmm.
are able to say, Lord, download to me what are some of my talents and my gifts that I
Hmm.
can start monetizing right now.
Yeah.
What are those things? And so I think we
Yeah.
just have to get, tapped in to the potential of what's available for us to make money in different ways.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get stuck in that one way of making money. So
Yeah.
we think that it's the only way.
Yeah. And I appreciate you said that. And also what she mentioned about the identity part, right? So a lot of times our jobs are very much attached to our profession in terms of our identity. And it's
Yeah.
starting to let go when we say, wait a minute, it might be that you're still attached to the profession, but maybe not that particular job because the
Yeah.
job is hurting you, but maybe you're
Yeah.
still able to continue with that profession. The other thing is that when we're in these situations that, we can feel that sense that we're stuck, right?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
we're here to say to you, in addition to having a different mind frame, because that's a lot of the thing that keeps us stuck is the
Yeah.
mindset, right?
Mhm.
So in addition to that, we are talking about coming up with plans, right? So Dr. Roche and I are very clear that we're telling Black women, don't just up and leave, right? Like,
Right.
don't up and leave and, oh God, God gonna, the universe gonna just, provide for me. That's not what we're
Yeah.
saying, okay? We're saying, yeah, okay, if you are in immediate danger, yes, go, okay? But if you are not in immediate danger, we're talking about ways to come up with a plan so
Mhm.
that you can make smart decisions, excuse
Yeah.
me, about how you're going to pivot. And so when we talk about plans, plans might be, okay, what are my other options right now?
Mhm.
Do I want to apply for another job? You might even, and I've even heard people do this, they might leave that job and go to another job as a temporary thing, just so they can
Mhm.
get out of this one to get some
Mhm.
money. And you might think about whatever jobs you have, can that be like the first investor into what
Yeah.
you're trying to do? Okay. So
Exactly.
you do have options. And so when we start thinking about that, I invite us to really stop and connect to the fear. Okay. So I
Mhm.
want us to be mindful that the fears are there. And
Yeah.
I don't want us to avoid the fear. Okay.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
when we avoid the fear, it makes it worse, right?
Yes.
Then we
Yeah.
start doing
Good
things like
preach.
not looking at our money or
Mhm.
getting this fearful way of like thinking, right? And I also
Mhm.
saw, and I hear this too, Dr. Roche, and if you could speak to this, when Black women talk about, but I'm single, right? I'm
Mm.
single and it's just me. And so
Yeah.
I'm the primary breadwinner. What am I going to do? Can you speak
Mhm.
in terms of that level of fear as well, in terms of leaving your job?
Yeah, I mean, and I think it all still kind of like stems back to that level of identity too, and what is the meaning that you're making of that, right? Like being single, because there's women out here in two income households, right, and no income is really coming from the second like the second partner, right? So that doesn't always mean that, but even like for me, just being like transparent, I'm a single person, but when I
Mhm,
think about having extra income, I don't think about another person that I have to
mhm,
tie myself to. I think of another opportunity,
hmm,
right? And so you think to yourself, like, what is another opportunity that I
mhm.
could, nurture and
Yeah,
build the way that I would nurture and build a relationship, right?
yeah.
Because a relationship requires energy and time and positivity and affirmations, to make that relationship work, right?
Mhm.
You want to do the same thing with the other opportunity that's in your life, right?
Yeah.
Whether that may mean another job, or it may mean a business, right? It requires that same level of focus and
Mhm.
intensity that you need
Mhm.
to build, right? And you're like, and you have to figure out how much it is. We still got to go back to like the numbers. How much do you need?
It always goes back to the real numbers, right?
Back to the
Yes.
numbers. How much do you need?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And then we can say, like, how much does this extra partner, if I was to have this partner, what would that partner be bringing in or bringing to the table that would help me and support me?
Mm.
Right. And
Mhm.
once we figure that out, then that's how you build that other stream of income. And we
Yeah.
want a stream, right? A stream has
Yes.
to flow. Okay. We
Yes.
don't want just money here and there. We want a flowing stream. And so that's how you actually, this we're going to talk about in the master class, is like transferring some of your skills. Because
Mhm. Mhm.
none of us, especially at this age, I'm assuming most people who are attracted to us are people who are like, potentially over 40 or over 35. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? We have gained so many skills,
Yeah.
professional and personal skills. We all have so many talents,
Mhm.
God-given gifts,
Mhm.
that we have that we can do something else with,
Yeah.
right? That job, if you took the time to just sit down and say, what did I learn at this job? Outside of all this negativity,
Right.
right?
Right.
What do I know how to do now because
Yes.
of this job? And then you can actually start to build, like, even like I talk about this vision, like building a vision of what kind of environment would I like to be in,
Mhm.
and what kind of environment can I create for myself,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know, and I can
But can I
then
say something,
go
Dr.
see it.
Rashay, too?
Uh-huh.
And I want us to be mindful too that sometimes when we've been so jaded about some of these jobs because many of us have had more than one toxic job
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes it's hard to even have that vision
Yeah.
because you keep going into toxic jobs. So there's a
Yeah.
perception, and Stephanie Perry talked about this when we were in her channel too, about all jobs are toxic. So all jobs are toxic. So might
Uh-huh.
as well just stay with the devil I know because they're all bad, right? And so we're
Mm.
saying that it's not true, even though a
Yeah.
lot of them may be toxic, right?
Yeah.
Because we think about toxic jobs as a system. So we're thinking about racism, sexism, all those other
Yeah.
things. That's everywhere. So
Right.
that may not go away, but some jobs might be less toxic, and
Yeah.
or you may want to do something else in terms of
Mm-hmm.
what you choose to do for your career, right? And
Yeah.
so, I saw a comment talking about, how sometimes our identity becomes
Mm-hmm.
so wrapped up in the job, and actually she mentioned about feeling almost unbalanced,
Uh-huh.
not having that identity tied to the job. And so,
Yeah.
Dr. Roche, what would you say in terms of, we talked about talents and gifts.
Yeah.
What would you say in terms of, for us as Black women, how
Mm-hmm.
do we claim our identity and our power back from these jobs?
Yeah. I think that, we've kind of discussed a little bit about it, but, taking your time to even embrace the feelings that you're having, right?
Hmm.
We have to start there, right? Because we
Yes,
don't want to, we want to make sure that we're validating those experiences.
yes,
If
yes,
you're
yes.
feeling, this anxiety, anger, that's happening, a sadness, some level of mourning and grief, right? Because when we initially go towards a job, our
Yeah.
mindset is that it's going to be the best job ever, right? We
Right.
always think that we're getting the dream job.
Yes,
When we
yes.
initially go in there, we think we're going to be there forever, like, 40 something years, retire from there. So we have to take the time for ourselves to even just feel.
Yeah.
That's always going to be number one. Like, take
Yeah.
the time, feel it out, allow yourself to have like these grieving emotions,
Hmm.
and whatever is coming up for you, right?
Yeah.
Because that'll then release, right, some things.
Yeah.
And then you want to take the time to actually start to, as we were talking about toxic job, my brain
Hmm.
kept on saying environment,
Hmm.
right? Because I think we always think just the job itself, right?
Hmm.
Because it might not be what you're doing that's the
Hmm.
problem.
Hmm.
It's the environment that's
Absolutely.
causing it, right? So it's
Absolutely.
a toxic environment.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
you want to
Yes.
look and see and kind of separate, like, what is the work and what is the
Hmm.
environment?
Yep.
you
Yep.
know and
Yep.
because the environment may be, coworkers who are getting away with things or have some interpersonal issues with these
Or
coworkers,
gossiping, or
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 gossip.
throwing you under the
Yeah.
bus. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
That's the people,
Yeah.
that's creating this environment. It could
Yeah.
be a changing of management and supervisors constantly, right?
Hmm.
There could be a level of disorganization,
Hmm.
because the job itself hasn't found any footing, right? And
Right.
that's causing the environment to be very difficult for you. And so you want to really take that out and say, okay,
Hmm.
this environment is not a good place for me.
Right.
Understand, right?
Right.
But when I think about like the actual job and the skills, like you want to like really attach to what that is for yourself,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
what's going to help you, like, even start the process of even having a vision of what you might like,
Hmm. Hmm.
to have in the next job
Yeah.
going forward.
Yeah. And I appreciated you also saying that I want us to acknowledge the feeling of fear, and
Yes.
acknowledge the grief feelings that you might have in relation to a toxic job. So we talked about this in the previous masterclass I did with Amory Archer, the anti-HR lady, was dealing with the grief. And my other videos on my
Mhm.
YouTube channel, I talk about my own grief process in relation to a toxic job. It is like a
It's a
passing,
loss.
right? So
Yeah.
it's a loss of the dreams. It's a loss
Hmm.
of the coworkers maybe that you were kind of close to, that you thought you
Hmm.
were cool with. Maybe you were cool with them. Maybe some of them betrayed you. It can be
Hmm.
very painful. And so I want us to have a space as Black women to connect to ourselves. So
Yeah.
many times we're so busy handling all these different things. And I know in my previous video, I talked about this, and somebody asked me to elaborate, and I didn't see the comments till later. But I was saying that being busy all the time, super busy, I'm too busy, I'm
Mhm.
too busy, that's a trauma response,
Yeah.
because there's something in you. Yes, you got things to take care of, but you can't find a few minutes out the day. When
Hmm.
we are so busy, that keeps us from focusing on what is it that we need, how are we being impacted, what are the signs that are going on for us, and what is something better that we want for ourselves. Okay.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I want us to take this moment right now, as you're watching this right now, okay? I invite you to sit and really think as we're talking. How are you feeling right now? How are you
Mhm.
feeling about your job? How is that job impacting you?
Mhm.
What is the vision that you want for yourself? Okay. And
Yeah.
I also want us to have a space to talk about what those fears are. Because
Yeah.
when we have all those fears bottled up, right? It's like a pressure cooker, right? It's like
Mhm.
all this stuff kind of builds up. And so we're trying to like let out the steam a little bit. Okay. So this is a talk for us to let out some of the
Yeah.
steam about what the fears are so that we can identify what they are and confront them. So we're going to
Yeah.
start this conversation, but in the master class, we're going to talk a lot more about confronting your fears. And let me say this too. So
Mhm.
I've gotten comments where people have asked, or questions, people have asked me, can you talk about um, how to make the fear go away or
Mm.
what to do about the fear? Okay. And I just want to be very transparent. There's no magic pill. There's
Right.
nothing that I can say that will make the fear go away. But what I want to share with you and be very honest with you is that the fear is going to be there. The fear is
Mhm.
going to be there. So don't lie to yourself and say, well, I feel fear, so that means I can't do anything. That no, that is not what it's
Mhm.
saying to you. The fear is your body is alerting you something needs to change, and
Mhm.
we need to look at what we need to do. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're trying to empower in terms of thinking about for yourself, what can you do to connect to yourself and connect to the fear? There's no magic pill that we can offer you. Okay.
Yeah.
What we can offer you is being authentic and saying the fear is going to be there. Don't let
Yeah.
that stop you from moving forward. Okay.
Yes. I mean, I totally agree with that. Like fear, anytime we're feeling fear and anxiety, it means that we're challenging ourselves, that we're
Yes.
growing. And so we're telling you that that's the right feeling to have as
Mm-hmm.
you're growing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
as you're stretching yourself, as you're becoming something more, as we've been talking about this, what keeps on coming into to me is like worthiness, right? Like
Oh yeah.
feeling worthiness, like,
Yeah.
feeling deserving of something different. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Believing that you can have something different. And
Yeah.
so that all of that is our internal stuff,
Yeah.
which means that we need to pour into ourselves. This is when personal development is so important, personal growth,
Mm-hmm.
to really build our self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend of mine who defines self-esteem as having a proper view of you, right?
Mm.
Having a proper view of you. And a lot of times, especially when you're in an environment that's not, noticing you, right? And not, giving you any praise for who
Mm-hmm.
you are, you can forget who you are.
Absolutely.
Right. And we want to
Absolutely.
get you to the point where you're like, hey, I'm filling myself back up again. And I'm
Yeah.
starting to remember like who I am, that I am worthy, that I am deserving of something different. I don't
Yeah.
belong in this kind of environment. I'm bigger than this kind of environment. And therefore I need to leave.
Exactly. Exactly. Like I deserve better. And I don't want to be anywhere, a
Yes.
relationship, a job where I'm being harmed. Like
Yes.
I don't want that. And I see what you wrote, Marissa. You said, as Stephanie Perry says, put the fear in the passenger seat and keep driving. Yes. So
Yes.
that's the way we can acknowledge it. The fear is going to be there. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, fear, I see you, but I'm controlling this car, right? I'm
Yes.
driving this car. And so the fear, again, it might stay there, but the more you move forward and getting a plan together, that's why I talk about
Mm-hmm.
exit planning is so important,
Mm-hmm.
because the initial, like when you think about it, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? When you start breaking it down into steps, like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
so now I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then it becomes a little less fearful, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
again, there's nothing that we can say to you. There's no magic pill that I can say to you, Dr. Roche
Mm-hmm.
can say to you
Yeah.
that makes the fear go away. However, what we can do and what we are doing
Mm-hmm.
is providing you with skills and resources so that you can approach your fear, so
Yes.
that you become more confident in approaching your fear. So when we talk about the masterclass, again, the fear is not completely go away.
Mm-hmm.
However, you will feel relieved. You will feel
Right.
relieved because you are courageous enough to address the
Yes.
fear. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's one thing we're gonna do. So let's shift a little bit too, because I see also someone said, Yes, they don't deserve me. It's like agreeing to be in an abusive relationship.
It is,
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. And you know what? You know what else is very painful and challenging for us too? Is that sometimes we're in these toxic situations that very much are like abusive relationships and very much like plantation environments. When we're in these situations and we're stuck by fear, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes what can happen is as Black women, we can start beating ourselves up.
Yeah.
Why am I staying here? Why am I let these people treat me like this? Why
Mhm.
am I right? Like we might want to say something else, but we know we might lose our job. We
Mhm.
know that we might be labeled the angry Black woman, all these other things, but sometimes we can beat ourselves up. So I'm inviting all of us, and I say this to myself a lot, let us practice self forgiveness about
Yeah.
being in that environment because we need to make money. We need
Yeah.
to have a job. We need to find a
Mhm.
way to have income. Understanding that, but not beat ourselves up. Okay. What
Yeah.
we're inviting you to do is to take your power back, but also plan
Mhm.
and be strategic about how you can get out. Okay. So I was joking with Dr. Roche about, with the master class, we were thinking about, okay, get ready on your marks, get set,
Let's
go.
go.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we're thinking about is you listening to this YouTube video. This is you getting
Be
ready.
ready.
Right.
Yeah.
So it might take you a while to get ready, but you are getting ready. And so the next step might be on your marks, right? So you go to
Mhm.
the master class and you get the information and you get the resources and you get the tools. Somebody
Mhm.
asked me, so if I come to the master class, does that mean I got to come to something else to get the information? No,
We're
you're going to
giving
get
it
all
all.
the information. It's going to be
Yes.
jam packed with
Yes.
information. Okay. So I'm wondering if we can talk also. Oh, I see more comments. Okay. Yes, it's the push to get out of a rut and create something new. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I also see I'm losing my hair. My rent is paid up for a few months though. So, okay. So let me say, my hair was falling out really bad. Okay. So to the point I had like it was just really, really bad to the point my
Mhm.
hairdresser was thinking, she's saying, what is wrong with you? Like, what's happening
Mhm.
here? Right. And so that is a sign when our hair starts falling out, when we start gaining weight, when we start crying on our way to work, when we
Mhm.
are experiencing a Sunday blues where it's like, oh God, I got to go back to that work. All those things are signs that a job is harming you. And
Mhm.
even thinking about the recent video I did with Alicia Renice previously, actually, was it this week? Yeah, on Sunday, about envy and jealousy among Black women in the workplace.
Mm.
That is also an example of toxicity. And toxicity gets in your body and it's poisonous. Okay.
Mhm.
So pay attention to the signs. And then she said her rent is due, it has been paid. So what would you say to her, Dr. Roche? She
I would
said her
say,
stuff falling out, but her rent is paid up for a couple of months.
thank you, Jesus, right? Because we don't have that stressor, right? To
Yes.
that you have to like worry about, right? But it made me. It's time for you to really. I'm assuming that you're not at your job anymore. Are you already on leave, or taking some time to really think about, what's going on? Because if you have rent paid, then you may have an opportunity here to make a choice. Like we were talking about going on leave, right? And
Yeah.
like maybe you do go on some level of like medical leave or mental health leave at this moment, especially while your rent is paid, because that tends to be the most like the highest expense that we tend to have is mortgage or rent. And so if that is like covered, then you definitely probably want to just go ahead and just get into the point of relaxing yourself, learning what's going on for yourself, because once the stress goes away, then the hair will be okay,
Yes. Your
right?
hair will grow back.
Your
Yes.
hair will
Yes.
grow back,
Yes.
right? Okay,
Hmm.
you are on medical leave. Was that who it was? Oh, oh no, you still there? Okay, I think this is somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's still
Um.
there.
So,
Yeah.
so that's something to really consider is really this like going on
Oh no,
leave.
she's on medical leave. I'm sorry. She is on medical leave, which is
She is.
good.
Okay, okay, okay. I thought it was
Hmm.
the other person, so I just want to make sure. But yeah, like I would say that if you're still there, then it's time to start considering leave.
Yeah.
So that you can start taking care of yourself. Because as long as you're in the environment, you're not going to be able to heal yourself.
No.
That's not
No.
going to happen.
Exactly.
And so I would definitely say that. Now, if you're already on medical leave, now it's time to actually give yourself some attention, right? You need to give yourself some care. I have an acronym for care, and it means to cast A, attention, R, a responsibility, and E, energy into yourself, right? I think that we need to create some self-care here. And that means we need to give ourselves some attention. We can't care about the job, meaning giving the job more attention, responsibility, and energy than we're giving to ourselves.
True.
Right. So that's that unbalance. Right. And we want to like get back into balance, and getting back into balance is now putting that energy into ourselves.
Exactly. And I think I did mix it up. I think she's not on medical leave. So
Yeah.
if you are not, right, try to take a medical leave, okay, if
Yeah.
you're able to do so, okay. And then I also see my fear is leaving without having a plan, but at the same time, I don't have time to apply, interview for new jobs because I'm always at work. What advice can you give her, Dr. Roche?
So it goes with that same thing. That's why we were saying like considering medical leave as an option. But if you
Mm-hmm.
don't have medical leave as an option, you may want to just consider an opportunity. I don't know, even while you're at the job. Sometimes we assume that we need to be tied down to a computer or tied down to a phone or whatever. You need to set some boundaries when it comes down to being at that job.
Hmm.
Even if it's a boundary in your head, you don't have to even tell people, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you may tell say between 2 and 3, I do nothing. I don't do any meetings. I go take a walk. I do something else that's just for me. And maybe you actually leave, the environment, right? If you're at your house, you go outside. If you're working at the actual place, then you actually, go outside and you just say, I'm just going to take a couple deep breaths, get some
Mm-hmm.
vitamin D. You know what I mean? Like, get into the sun,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to sit there and say, okay, what will be my next step?
Yeah.
Like developing your plan. But you need to create boundaries, because some of these things are, even though a job has expectations of you, they often say like you teach people how to treat you,
Mm-hmm.
right? You, even in a relationship with your job, has taught them to rely on you in a certain way. So they're
Hmm.
always thinking like you're always going to be available. I know
Hmm.
anytime I call Dr. Kamani, she going to answer.
Hmm.
Well, you've taught them that,
Hmm.
right? Because there's probably other people at your job who they don't rely on in the same capacity,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
tells you that you could have a boundary. You have to make a choice to have that boundary. You
Yeah.
probably add so much value to that job that they're not going to fire you just because you didn't answer between 2 and 3, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have to create like, what is that boundary for yourself, to give yourself space even while you're at the job,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely. And I want to talk a little bit too, because I see some more comments in the
Mhm.
chat. Also, if you recognize that your fears are attached to other things in your life, because a lot of times we have fears about something, it stems from childhood stuff. So maybe unresolved childhood issues or other
Mhm.
traumas in your life. If you're recognizing that, please go to therapy and talk to your therapist about
Mhm.
that, particularly a Black woman. So I just want to share again, there are free therapy services for Black women, resources. So there's
Yeah.
the Loveland Foundation, okay? So they provide free therapy vouchers for Black women. And then the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation, which is Taraji P. Henson, the actress. She
Mhm.
has a foundation also in terms of mental health awareness. So periodically they have campaigns that offer free therapy services for Black women. So check out those resources, okay? Now, when we think about, what to do, again, what we're all talking about, what Dr. Roche and I are talking about, is the importance of having a plan and getting ready and confronting your fears, okay? So I see in the chat, my hours may be short, but I'm stressed out for now. I tend to call off and take a break for time for myself. Good. I'm glad you do that.
Mhm.
After my shift is over, work over, no more work. Yes, those
Yes.
boundaries.
Have to
Yes,
hold those
yes. Don't
boundaries.
take that work home. Okay. Your
Yeah.
work is your work, and then your home is your home. Yes. So the Loveland Foundation, I'll put that information in the description section. Actually, Marissa, if you're here, if you could put the information for the Loveland Foundation. But if not, it'll be in the description section, okay? And
Mhm.
we will let you know how to access these resources. Yes, very important. So we're going to shift and talk about how we can help you, okay? So
Mhm.
we've talked about what are some of your fears. You all have been very um, transparent and open
Yes.
about what your fears are in relation to leaving a toxic job. So now we're going to talk a little bit in terms of what we can do to
Mhm.
help you. Okay, so what Dr. Roche and I can do to help you. And this is the Loveland Foundation right here on the screen. Okay. So the Loveland Foundation, again, is for Black women. It's created by Rachel Cargill, and it's an organization, and they provide free therapy vouchers for Black women. Okay. A number of my clients have accessed the Loveland Foundation. I'm so grateful to them in terms of providing that access to services. Okay. So, again, you contact them, you let them know that you're interested in therapy, you locate your therapist, and you ask them if they accept the Loveland Foundation vouchers. Okay. So, again, resources for you. So, in terms of how Dr. Roche and I can help you, so the fears, we've acknowledged that, and we want to help you work through those fears. Okay.
Mhm.
So, we talk about confronting the fears, but we also talk about coming up with a plan. Okay. So, the masterclass that we're having, the Get Your Money Right, so you can leave that toxic job, financial masterclass for Black women. The early registration ends today. Okay, so by
Yes.
midnight today, it is over. Okay, for early registration. However, you can still pay the regular rate. Okay, so if we're talking about saving money, we're just trying to help you save money by getting the early registration, which ends today. The masterclass is November 8th and 9th at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, and 4 p.m. Pacific time. So it's 2 days, okay? And we're going to be talking about a lot of things. One of the things we're going to talk about is how to confront your fears, okay? So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Roche for her to share a little bit more in terms of what we're going to be covering, the masterclass. And as I mentioned before, the masterclass is going to be webinar format. Okay, so I know Black women have expressed to me their concerns about people finding out that they're trying to apply for another job, which is horrible, but it's true,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
true. So we have made that security measure so that it's webinar format. No one will be able to see that you're there. Okay, they won't be able to see your face. Your name is not going to be posted. If you want to comment or have a question during the webinar, you can use a different name. Okay, you can change your name on there, and you can also access the replay. Okay, so Dr. Roche, if you could share a little bit more about the masterclass,
Yeah.
and how we can help them in terms of these fears and being
Yeah.
stuck and not having a plan.
Yes. I mean, so it's already amazing because we have two Black clinical psychologists in the building, right? So we're going to have that already. And we're going to, of course, identify and confront your fears, to talk about some of the things we talked about tonight, but we're going to go a lot deeper into it. But also with this unknown, right? The fear of the unknown, starting to look at your numbers, so reducing some of that anxiety and avoidance that you have around your money. So we're going to get into the place of like just becoming more mindful of your money,
Mm-hmm.
so just be awareness, right? We're
Yes.
just bringing awareness. How much money do you actually need in order to leave? How do you develop a plan? How do you develop a timeline? Depending on where you are, depending on what stress level you're at, we'll develop like what is the plan for each one of those stress levels.
Mm-hmm.
What is that 3-month plan, a 6-month plan, a year plan, depending on what's going on for you.
Mm-hmm.
We're definitely, we believe in streams of income. We've said it a couple times, right? So we want to be able to like help you with identifying what are your talents, your abilities, your gifts. What are those skill sets that you have from this job that can be transferable, and how we might utilize that to either start your own business or to, go into an environment that's more suitable and deserving of who you are,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we are going to talk about that. We're going to talk about those good benefits. I know we always are so nervous when it comes down to like leaving a job with good benefits. What do I do? How do I roll over my money?
Yeah.
How do I get health insurance? How do I get a retirement? How do I keep my retirement going? Because I do want to retire one day. So we're also going to cover those different topics in the masterclass as well. So we're going to give you all the tools that you need. That's why we say, get ready, on your marks, get set, right? We're going to help you get set, and then we're going to help you go. That's
Yeah.
what the masterclass is going to help you with, all the different steps. So you'll feel after leaving, you'll feel ready to actually leave your job if that's what you want to do, and you'll know exactly around what time you want to do it.
Yeah.
It'll be adjustable. It depends on how you feel. right? But at least you'll know what to do.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And you know, when we talk about the masterclass, and you can see Dr. Roche's energy, right? She is bubbly, right?
Yes,
And
excited.
you know, the masterclass is not going to be all gloom and doom. It's not going to be heavy,
Right.
heavy like boohoo. It's not. No, it's going to be heavy topics, but we're
Yeah.
going to present it in a way that's engaging, right?
Yes.
That's fun, actually, and you'll leave the masterclass feeling a sense of relief because
Yeah.
you will have a plan. There's nothing else you need to do with us after, unless you want to work with us more. That's
Mm-hmm.
fine,
Yeah.
okay?
Okay.
But you will leave the masterclass with your stuff, okay? You will
Yes.
have all information so that you can go, okay? It's up to you to decide when you want to go, but you will have everything you need so that you can go. And Dr. Roche wants to do this and offer this for you because we know so many Black women are really suffering right now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We know Black women, we're really hurting out here in these toxic jobs. And we want to show you there's a different way. Now, I
Yeah.
do want to say this too. And I did a short video about this that, you know, sometimes as Black women, we have to prioritize and really invest in ourselves too. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we might use our money because of what's happening at the job. So we might use our money to look really good. So we
Mm-hmm.
might spend a
Retail
lot of money
therapy.
on our clothes, our hair, our eyelashes, our nails, all these other things, but that keeps us more in debt and that keeps you connected more to the job. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're inviting you to think about what are all the ways that you can invest in yourself to help prepare yourself leave that toxic job. So
Yes.
part of the investment might be going to the master class. Okay. And so we're trying to save you some money by early registration. Okay. Now,
Mm-hmm.
after early registration, it's not going to break the bank. Okay, but it is still an investment. So think
Yes.
about how you are investing in yourself to help yourself get out of a toxic job, okay?
Yes.
Because a toxic job is just not going to be good for you psychologically, physically, and it's not going to get any better the longer you
Mm-hmm.
wait, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I always say to Black women, sometimes we say, well, I'd rather stay with the devil I know than the devil I don't know. I don't want you to know any devils.
Yeah.
I don't want you to
Come
know
on
any
now.
devils, right? No, I know
Yes.
any devils, okay? So just be mindful of that. And I see, so yes, absolutely. So look into the Loveland Foundation. And they provide those resources for you. And it's very, very helpful. Okay. So as we're signing off, you know, again, we wanted to just come on. This is a very impromptu live. I just met with
Yeah.
Roche today. We were
Yeah.
planning to come.
Excited.
And girl, let's do a live today. Let's just talk about it because I want us to be able to have direct conversations about how we're feeling, and I want us to have a space for Black women to be able to be vulnerable about how we're feeling and to say, this is hurting me. This is hurting me. To be able to say that because we are so, under attack so often that many times we don't have a space to be vulnerable. So this is a
Mm-hmm.
space for you to be vulnerable. And I see someone said, I'm not going to be able to catch the masterclass live, but I will purchase on the replay. Excellent.
Yes.
I also scheduled a consultation session with Dr. Roche for later this
All
month.
right. Look forward to meeting you.
Exactly. Now that's an example of investing in yourself, right?
Yes.
So even if you can't come to the live, and I said this before on Stephanie Perry's channel, even if you can't come to the live, let's say that you live in a different country. So let's say you don't live in the United States, but you are having this. I had a consult with a woman in the Netherlands, Dr.
Wow.
Roche, and she was saying the same exact stuff that we're experiencing in the States about toxic jobs, blah, blah,
Happens everywhere.
happening in the Netherlands, happening in
Mm-hmm.
the UK, happening all over the place. So if you are in a different country and a time zone doesn't work for you for the masterclass, then you can get the replay. Okay.
Yeah.
So we want to make this accessible to all Black women, no matter where you are. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We want to help you find a way to get out. So get ready, okay? So get ready, get your ticket, okay, so that you can get the masterclass. And Dr. Roche and I are just so thankful to have space with you
Yes.
and to be able to provide you with whatever resources we have because we really want to support your healing. And we know that
Mm-hmm.
the healing really happens after you leave the toxic job, right?
Yes.
So, Dr. Roche, anything you want to share? That's right. No devils, no new love, right? No devils. Oh, none of that.
No,
Okay.
yeah.
So, Dr. Roche, anything you want to share before we sign off? Any last words?
I'm just excited, for all those who have already signed up, those that are going to sign up tonight and join us. I'm really excited to meet all of you guys. I'm all about, because I am energy and excitement, I'm going to be firing up the chat, wanting you guys to like communicate with us as much as possible. So it feels more engaging and it feels live, right? And so that's what we're going to do. Going to give the opportunity for you guys to get any questions that you have inside of you, any of those fears that, you're struggling with. We're going to talk, we're going to speak to those things, right?
Yes.
So whatever you want to say, you see how we're active when it comes down to being on YouTube live. Imagine having us, in like a more Zoom, in a more in person kind of feeling. So it's going to be even more exciting.
Exactly. And so if you have not already done so, please give this video a thumbs up because it lets YouTube know to suggest this video to other Black women. And if you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do so. And, as Dr. Roche and I are here to support you, we are asking that you support other Black women. So if you know of another Black woman who is in a toxic job, please share this video with her.
Yes,
please share with her about the masterclass because we're trying to help as many Black women as we can. Okay, you're part of the movement too. If you watch this video right now, you're part of the movement in terms of helping Black women leave and heal from toxic jobs. So again, resources are available for you. Be open to receive those resources and remember to invest in yourself because you're worth it. You really are. Okay. So we're signing off and hope to see you in the masterclass. Okay, take care. Bye.